Now we're live. All right. Thanks everyone for joining today. Apologize for my voice. I'm on the back end of a cold here, but that's how it goes. And appreciate everybody for listening in today. Thrilled to have Deb Newell on the line from Real Time Consulting. If you're not on our newsletter, I encourage you to just listen to our newsletter, subscribe to our newsletter. Three I really enjoy. I enjoy Peter Lohman's, I enjoy Todd Orstein's, and I enjoy Deb's newsletters. And I appreciate you guys. I don't know if you intentionally trade topics all around, but it's really good. To be able to get the three opinions on, especially if you've been reading them for the last 6, 7 months, 9 months, the three different points of view on these reoccurring problems that keep showing up. I think it's important to have the different perspectives. One, important to have the different timing of all the perspectives. And since everything is changing so fast in this business, it's incredible to kind of understand these persistent problems. They're not being solved. We're still talking about them all the time. And people are talking about them. There are solutions out there. You've got a choice. You can choose to exist to endure the problem or do something different. But complaining about it, it's not going to do much.
Yeah.
And so
no, it's good. And those guys are my friends. And so we don't exchange topics by any means, but I definitely will sometimes text them going, I agree, I don't agree. And then I'll let them know. And then it's fun. It's all in good spirits to help us be better at also producing content that is important to all of us.
Totally. And I think that what you've done really well, I'll say all three of you guys, but with respect to listening to it, is you do have markedly different opinions on solving it. And if we can all agree on the problem and all agree on this different ways of solving a problem, then that's a healthy conversation.
Well, as long as everybody knows I'm always right, then it's actually pretty easy. It goes really well.
That's a healthy place to finish.
Exactly, right?
All right. Well, and everyone's listening on LinkedIn Live, obviously your comments, we appreciate that. That's going to help us, engage the conversation, put them up there and we'll address them as they fit. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, favorite, helps people find it. This is brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is remote maintenance and inspection software. We also do on-site and self-guided, speed up work orders, speed out turns, make the things a whole lot faster. Hell yes, customers are customers that buy because they're trying to solve a problem. They've actively sought out solutions in the market. Maybe they really have a different way of articulating the problem. Maybe they're solving it in an old-fashioned way, like we were just talking. And they are looking for new ways of solving it. But either way, they're typically very frustrated. And so we'll talk today a little bit about Deb's business and real-time consulting. But we'll also talk about just the overall business of property management and how people are seeking to solve these problems and where the opportunities lie. Again, all of your engagement on LinkedIn is appreciated. If you're listening to this after the live show, any comments that you put in there, we'll get tagged on it and be able to jump in and respond. As we always start, Deb, appreciate you jumping on and joining us today. A little bit about yourself. How did you get into this role? And how are you enjoying it? I mean, you've been at Real Time for your tenure is persistent.
Yeah. So I a lot of people know my story. I mean, I built, operated, and exited my own property management and maintenance company. After the exit, I began, well, it was actually before the exit. I really started consulting in 2013 and advising other operators who were facing some of the similar challenges. I had served on some boards and it was really just it was peer-to-peer for a while at that point. But when I finally exited, I really went full into this full time and just working with operators facing the same challenges that I once faced: growth without structure, reactive leadership, unclear roles, inconsistent financial performance, teams working hard but not aligned. So I serve, that's as a consultant today, and I really only focus on the property management industry. I do single family, multifamily, affordable, commercial. I kind of step into this as a strategic advisor. And I call it kind of this operational architect a little bit. And my work focuses on aligning structure. I call it people, process, and technology and financial performance, really so the business can scale without all that chaos.
Yeah. And do you find given the way things are at right now, it's so interesting because it feels as though the market has got a bit of it's feeling a bit of I don't say contraction a little bit. I mean, it has gone from 60 million to 14 million in the SFR space. in the multifamily space, kind of still kicking around that 45, 46 million units out there, and everything else is kind of like in the mix. How are you finding the markets are responding to current state of things? Like where are you finding the most amount of pull from a customer perspective?
It's interesting because I think each pillar of this industry, whether it's SFR or multifamily, foundationally, a lot of their problems are very similar. So I think the pull is, revenue's growing, but margin's not. The teams are busy, but results aren't consistent. Leadership's reactive instead of being strategic. That's like kind of this universal language that I see across all assets.
So that's like, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there because like
right.
Each one of those is a symptom to other problems and other priorities.
Exactly.
Sometimes I think like if I go back 4 years ago, sorry to interrupt you, like
no, okay.
Like the operational excellence pieces that we're suffering through today,
right,
weren't prioritized 4 years ago, but I've kind of come to accept that they shouldn't have been because it was a revenue.
Well, I think true, and I think there's a lot of organic change that happens. I mean, I look at when I started the industry. I mean, probably for the first 15, even 17 years of me doing this in the early 2000s, late 90s, that, it was kind of just, the same. It nothing, there was no big significant shift, no big technology shift, it just was like the same as always, like business as usual. Yeah. And then I don't know what it was. I wish I could say, was it a pre-COVID, post-COVID shift? It could be. I do feel like COVID helped invent a lot of movement. I think it was brewing in the background, and then I think it made it, project a little bit further. But I think when I really think about it, the same operational misalignments that I had even in the early 2000s are really the same misalignments today. For whatever reason, there was just I think it wasn't in our faces the same way it is today. Social media wasn't quite the same. There was, Facebook was there, but there wasn't the groups, there wasn't the collective geniuses all coming together and having these conversations. Really, the focus was on just door growth. Like there was no metrics, there was no KPIs, there was no discussion about that, but the struggles were very much real and a lot of the same. Hiring more people, wanting to add more doors. The software was the software, so that wasn't really like we kind of accepted it. Is probably the best way to say it. Yep. But, profitability, we were doing this to make money and, trying to improve what we offered. But I think the focus was more, on our, like what we took home, not necessarily what we provided. And so that, I think that moment when we kind of now have stepped away and looked at what's going on around us, that's where we look at, how can I be a better leader to provide more, not just for my client, but for my team as well. So what I do is I call it looking under the hood of the car, right? So I'm just really finding out what the root causes for all of these symptoms that you say are happening. And in the end, that foundation is what our businesses are all based off of. And so it's fixing that foundation, but really getting to the core root of that.
Do you find if you look at the problems you were solving 4 years ago, you mentioned revenue and then now operational excellence, were they different? Was that kind of like the bulk of your business was revenue related consulting? And then now it's...
I think it's all revenue. I think it all comes down to being revenue because a lot of these problems, that's a really good question. I would probably say there's more operational misalignment than there is. I think we all know I call them the primary answers on how to make more money. There's a lot of help out there on if you just chatted it or Googled, you could probably say, well, how do I make more money? What do I need to do to increase my revenue in my business, especially in this industry? It's going to give you all these KPIs, these metrics we need to start measuring, which then go, oh, you could add these fees to the resident or to the owner. There's all of that. So it's just how we build that into our business. So the revenue opportunities are out there. And in some states, you're regulated, so you can only do so much. So, and I think they all know that. In fact, there's more regulation now than definitely when I started. So that's also, that can be a strain, but it is what it is, and you can max it out to what you can. There's always going to be some innovative ideas and solutions on an increasing revenue, but that's a choice on the company owner on if they want to implement that. I will say operationally, that's probably one of the bigger challenges. Yes, revenue can grow. Margin is one thing to focus on, but I think if the team is struggling and is constantly busy, is constantly reactive, that leads to poor decisions. And actually, if you have certain fee structures in place, if they're not being actively or constantly implemented or focused on, and things can be forgotten, even if there's automation out there, you still need the team to enforce that. And if the team isn't feeling, bought into it, or that's a little bit of motivation and, a mindset, and that can be problematic to a company altogether. It's hard managing people, and I recognize that. And for a lot of people, that's not in their skill set. It's just, they started this company, they're business owners, not managers of people.
But do you, I mean, yeah, they're asset owners, but then they become people managers because people make the asset work.
Yeah, you need the people. I mean, it's without them, it's just then you, and then you'll just burn out. And so think of your own burnout. That's what you're putting onto your team. So if they're burnt out, then that's a problem.
And I think it's interesting the way you bring out revenue, kind of double click a little bit, given that you get a view of the whole breadth. Because this is, I think, for people who are joining the industry or maybe have been working in one part of the industry, let's talk about revenue for a second.
Okay.
And what revenue means for owner operators, for fee managers, and let's just leave it there for now. Oh, and how about service companies and service companies? So let's go fee managers, service companies, and owner operators.
Okay. So revenue for a fee manager, are you talking about like what are the revenue opportunities? Like what can they charge? Is that?
I think that when we talk about revenue, and I'm being rhetorical here, like people often think that it's the same thing, right? That the NOI should be important to everybody, but like different audiences have different P&Ls, right? And so like an owner operator may care about NOI, a fee manager delivers NOI,
right?
But makes revenue a different way, and then a service company really is just delivering a service and charging for that service. So there's three different.
When I think revenue is not diversified and structured intentionally, I think growth increases the workload without increasing the profitability. Yep. So the symptom can look like we're growing, but we're not making any money. Our maintenance department feels busy, but we're not profitable. And, owners push back on fees constantly. I hear that all the time. So that's really a structure issue. I don't know if that's necessarily a market issue. I think there's the 4 pillars of, fee managers. There's their core, obviously your core management revenue, right? Your percentage of rent, typically percentage of rent, your flat fee structures or your tiered pricing models. And some people have minimum monthly fees in there. There's your leasing and placement revenue. So your lease up fees, your renewal fees, your application administrative fees, your tenant benefit packages, all of those. Then there's your service and your maintenance and service. I always say maintenance is not free. So that's where I would see where most revenue is leaking and where the most opportunities are is maintenance coordination fees. Again, so this is going to be, some people are going to be like, oh, I can't do that in my market, or I've already started my business not doing that. And if I add that in, that's going to be a problem. Vendor markup and oversight fees. I think in-house maintenance, if you are truly doing in-house, there's that gross margin piece. Turn coordination fees. I mean, I could go on. I love maintenance. I can go on forever about it. It's such hard work, and it's truly 80+% of what we do every single day. It touches the entire life cycle of property management from the moment that you even onboard a new property or it comes through from a turnover, marketing, leasing. You're probably doing some, even if it's a Swiffer clean to get the unit ready, rent ready.
Yep.
And then tenants move in, we have maintenance, occupied service requests, and then you have the turnover. Like, it just touches everything. And then I think the last one is like the ancillary fees, right? The add-on revenue. Everybody is kind of familiar with some of those. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? So I can, RUBS and utility billing administration, filter programs through like a resident benefit package, pet fees, technology fees, insurance programs, inspection fees, all of these things that you can literally charge for. Those are what I call ancillary fees. And some of them have some variables in it depending on your market.
So then, like, there's no limit to what you could possibly charge for, right?
No, but I will say this, there's a lot of, I have a lot of clients who are like, they're what is that? Fee fatigue is probably the best way to say it, right? They don't want to be that one person that charges a fee for everything. Yeah. I mean, you to your point, we should get paid for what we do. If you're going to just charge a management fee and nothing else, I actually have a client right now that's doing this. We're restructuring his entire fee structure because in his market, he truly believes there's like I'm calling it a fee fatigue. He has kind of done his research and he's like, I've talked to a lot of people. They don't like being charged for this and this and this. It's the unexpected. Even if you tell them, even if you're transparent, they still feel like I'm being nickeled and dime is probably the best way to say it. So he literally is doing, we did the math, that we did our market research. We looked at all of the, like what ifs, what ifs type of thing. And he is going to charge one flat fee. He's not charging a placement fee, a renewal fee. He's not charging anything else. He's not even charging a maintenance coordination fee. Now, the fee is probably higher than what most people would expect in a property management industry, in this industry. I'm kind of excited about it because I'm like, I kind of like the idea. It's one fee. It's nothing else. But he has, we've talked at length about what will this look like on the bottom line. It will be so much easier for him to maybe increase that fee in a year, 2 years, whatever he feels like, to maybe a percentage, maybe 2%. Again, it might be driven by the economy. There's a lot of factors into that. But it's easier for me it's like Netflix, right? If I have a Netflix and it used to be $9.99 a month, and then I got the little letter that said, hey, it's going to go up to $12.99. I didn't question it. I'm like, all right, it's $12.99. I still want to stream my shows. Now it's $14.99 and $16.99. I mean, Netflix has been, is pretty intentional and smart about it. They wait. It's not every year, but they make a significant jump that you're like, yeah, that kind of stings. It's $3 more, but I really like the shows they're producing. It's the same thing. If they really like what you're producing, that 2% increase or whatever it may be will be understood. They trust you. Now we have this relationship built on trust. Yeah. I trust that you're going to do this for me. Oh, that's all you're charging me. Even if you do charge for multiple different things, different revenue streams, increasing some of them, all of them, after you've built this relationship of trust is a much different conversation than if you did this every single year without a lot of thought, just because.
And do you find that like the business models for a dense market and then a scatter market have a different relationship to those fee structures that are available to charge?
I think so. I hear that a lot. I work with clients all over, and some are in markets where they literally like, I could never get away with that. And not because of regulatory restrictions. It's just because that's just, we're in the South, in the Mid-South. And that's just, we're a lot slower here. We do things a little bit more old fashioned. They could probably definitely be that one company that stands out, and maybe others would follow, but they're a little scared to make that jump and be the first one because they're also thinking, I'm going to lose all of my clients. Yeah. So it's really about taking that chance. Like you just have to look at it and say, but again, there's a lot of it. So what's your payroll structure? If you're just charging fees to charge fees without thinking, it's not really affected by the economy, everything else, all of your expenses, and you're just doing it, then that's not a good strategy either.
I had a great conversation last week with a vice president in a big SFR, and the conversation we were talking around was around like product development, right? So thinking about in terms of like not fees, but in terms of products. And so what's a product look like, right? What does a product do in your life? Like this remote control is a product. These glasses are a product, and they all do things. They all solve a problem for me, and they have a price that's charged accordingly. Like I buy 5 of these glasses for $15 on Amazon because I lose them all the time. And so the service I get, I want to exchange a value that represents what is important to me, and I want to be able to choose to buy that.
I call that the strategic shift, right? It's that, stop thinking, I've said this, stop thinking like a property manager, start thinking more like an asset manager of your own company, even of your own company. Not so much yes, we're trying to be more proactive with our clients, but I'm talking about your own company. Every fee, every process, every department must answer, does this fee or does this increase enterprise value? When the revenue architecture is intentional, the business becomes investable, scalable, and resilient, I think, right? So, and that's something I've talked about before as well. Whatever your exit plan is, your strategic vision in the future, if you're giving it to your children or you're selling it to your employees, or you're selling it, or you're going to stay in it forever. But you have to think about that intention, not just today, but what is it going to be like in 3 years and 5 years? And is your business something I would invest in? Is it make sense? And do I see this path to continually reinvest in the growth, in the people, in the technology, in the processes? And it also has to be scalable. So I'll often tell a client, I'll be like, what you're doing is okay, but I'm also thinking, is it scalable and is it sustainable? Because at some point, people will burn out if something isn't scalable and sustainable long term. And then it has to be resilient to the economy, to changes, to all of this. So if you don't pivot as well and change your business as needed, then it's also not very resilient against what's out there.
So I just love the 3 words you just used. So scalable, sustainable, and resilience. I'm just going to click on those. Like scalable is awesome, because scalable, people need to understand that if you're, there's a book called 2X or 10X is better than 2X, or easier than 10X. Dan Sullivan, it's a really good book. I was just talking to Dan French about it last week. And it's got a great notion to it, is that like, it's easier to think of 10X and 2X because you do things differently. But if you have no plans on going to 10X, then you got to think consistently in 2X, and that's okay too.
And that is okay.
Scalability is a relevance thing. It's a reference to your goals and objectives.
Exactly.
And then,
you're 100% correct. I think, and then scalability and sustainability, because that's important as well. And you have to, can I sustain what I'm doing today, tomorrow, and onward?
Yes. And then I think there's a really good guys from Evernest did a great podcast in the summertime talking about property management companies want to buy, and like they want to buy companies that the owner is not the touch point with every single client, because that is not sustainable if you acquire that company. And so like, going back to your story when you exited, and I'm sure things were different back then, but like ultimately if I'm going to buy a business, I want the business and I want the owner like touching as the key trigger point, because the owner is selling that business for a reason. They want to transition, change. And then the resilience one is I think you're bringing that word up, because I've been thinking about this for quite a long time, especially since I'm sick. Is like resilience is an interesting concept that is completely misunderstood by a lot of people. When you talk about resilience, resilience is a lot. They think about it's like predictability, repeatability, but the word resilience has to do with your ability to adapt to external conditions.
Yeah,
and so
I like that.
That makes it different. So scalable and sustainable can have their own axes, but resilience is a different axis, Because I tell you something, like responding to no labor in a market, that's resilience. Responding to change in interest rates, that's resilience. Responding to one of your clients that sells their whole portfolio and exits a market, that's how you respond to that is resilience.
Yeah. So I would say that property management is not a very stable business. It's a pressure business. You are always managing owners with financial expectations. And by the way, it's very important that you understand all of these expectations. Residents with emotional expectations, right? Vendors with capacity constraints. So you have to think through that. Regulations, which I've talked about. And then even the assets that we manage physically deteriorate. So that's where the, proactive maintenance, preventative stuff. So, but if you remove that resilience, the model collapses. So I think you have to look at what's that financial resilience. To your point, the revenue can fluctuate. Operational resilience every day we know brings friction. So I hear this all the time. I'm, my staff is leaving. There's turnover. Owners are escalating. They're different owners than they were 5 years ago. Reputation management is really important. I think resilient companies are systems driven and not like individual. Like you're not the hero of your own. Like 100%. It's not just you. Yeah.
Heroes are a risk, right? Hero mentality is a risky mentality. Like you look at the movies and all the things, all the heroes, usually the things that you had to do to activate hero behavior is because something else went wrong that's non-hero behavior.
Right.
And so you read like the guy, Nassim Taleb, who wrote Black Swan, but also wrote Anti-Fragile. Anti-Fragile is what you're touching on from that resilient perspective. It's like resilience is an objective, but how do I be not fragile? And this concept like resilience is a function of how you respond to external environment is robustness. Right. And so when I said a call earlier today, talking about contingencies as an example, right? Like we wrote about this, I think you wrote about this like last 2 weeks. You talked about capital reserves. And capital reserves might look a lot like profit to some people.
Right.
But they take it off the table. And then all of a sudden the resident moves out and you get a $10,000 bill and they're not ready for that. And they get upset and they're angry at the PM. It's not the PM's fault you didn't reserve any capital for that reno, that move out, that turn. They didn't do it. But then again, like going back to owner obsession or owner mentality, like the owners being proactive about what's going to happen with your owner puts you in a better position than revealing it at the very end. And what I find really crazy is we design systems that are fragile. We design them to be anti-resilient.
So I think that's interesting because I think that's when people reach out, like when they're reaching out for help, when they're calling me and they're like, they're like, oh, we just need better systems. Like that's kind of like that's been the buzz for a while, right? Because there's so much technology. I need this. I want to sign up for this. The shiny object syndrome, whatever you want to call it, right? They're like, oh, but so-and-so is doing it that way. So I need to sign up for that. And I think what they really mean is we need this, to your point, we need this business to stop feeling fragile. So is it really like, are they feeling that? And so, structure, margin, role clarity, KPIs, those all create this resilience. And without it, I think that growth becomes a risk. They don't really know that that's what's going on. They just, again, are like, we need this, or it's almost like they know, but they don't know. And so they're just grabbing at straws.
Well, especially when you consider, I love this conversation, especially when you consider the mental position of someone who chooses to invest in real estate. Like the commercial at midnight says, invest in real estate, stable cash flows, lever up your expenses, and you can create an asset pool, flip it and borrow against it and do it again. It's like risk-free, easy peasy, no problem. And that sounds great. But in reality, we take something that has a leverage element to it, which means you're accelerating your return on capital because of debt. And then we're putting that up in the market and make ourselves vulnerable to cash flows that are revenue related, that are resident related, that are out of pocket related, and not considering. And if you get into so if you're buying like puts, calls, options on tech stocks in a Singapore stock exchange, you have a different risk appetite than those that are choosing to buy single family rentals in Boise, Idaho. and
Right.
they're buying something different. And when that doesn't turn out that way, they get upset. Because the package that I bought was I wanted 15 homes in Boise, Idaho with very consistent, good work staff. And the market's going to the right and it's going to be good. How come the boiler units are all failing?
Yeah.
How come the furnaces are all burning? The heat exchangers are all crap. Why am I getting a $10,000 heat exchanger bill? And it's like, and I haven't really thought about this like this way in real time, but like, it's because we allow the short-term thinking to overcome what is a long-term investment. Even if it's in short-term in real estate terms, it still is in much longer term relative to the other investments that are available.
Well, and a lot of us need to turn things around quickly. And it's not that we're not patient, but we're not patient. We don't have time. We have to have this now, or we need to fix this now. And so we make these very reactive decisions to our business without thinking through the long-term consequence of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because a long-term consequence sometimes is like not comfortable.
Well, or it's too long-term. It's too far in the future. They're like, that's great, but I need to make this decision now.
Yeah.
They're pivoting, it's good to pivot, but you can pivot too fast too, as well. And that can damage the reputation, what's going on, I think having clarity on, I just go back to expectations is like that. I love that word because I'm like, once you understand and can even quantify what your own expectations are for the business and what you're trying to solve for, you'll stand behind your business a lot differently, because we tend to make exceptions for, to generate revenue, which is not right either.
Or it might be we make exceptions just because we want to tell a good story instead of a tough story.
Yes, but it becomes tough when you make those exceptions, and it becomes tough on the team. So then this is where, staff turnover happens, and this is where that property manager, the leaders of property management, it's just tough, right? You have to absorb conflict and sense of urgency and emotional volatility and staff burnout, and then owners are dissatisfied, and so then you have this emotional regulation that you have to deal with, and that's where they kind of like avoidance at this point. What do I do? I'm walking away from it. That's too much. I just want to stick to business and manage properties.
Do you think that so it's interesting is you kind of talk about the incongruence, like the bad fit between the asset type and then the staffing model. And what I'm getting at is something at the beginning, people, process, technology, is like the asset duration is by nature long-term, right? Even in real estate, short-term is still long-term compared to other stuff. But the people model is short-term.
Right.
You got 50% turnover, and even in the support services, you got high turnover level. And so we kind of have this and I talked to Adrian Dell about this back at Optech around this hero mentality of we think that we have a business that can enable heroes, but really it should be enabling a system, and the system should be constitutional to fit the investment category. Is how we think about it. Because maybe Deb's an awesome, site super. I'm going to hire Deb. And if I could just get more Debs, how many times do you hear, if I could just get more Debs, this would be an easier business?
Right. Yeah. So, I think when you have a bad fit between people and asset management, it's probably one of the most expensive mistakes is putting that wrong person in an asset facing role. And it just requires asset management, just in general, property management just requires a very different cognitive and behavioral profile than even just day-to-day property operations. And I think when there's a bad fit, the symptoms show up pretty quickly. It's just what we end up doing with that. Because I hear a lot, I can't get rid of so-and-so, or I can't make this change, because then who's going to do the job? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you feel helpless, then you get despair, and all of a sudden you're depressed, you're stressed out, can't do anything.
You're making it sound very depressing. Yes. But you're I
It's a
think
human condition.
it is a human condition, 100%. But why do we accept? We actually we almost justify it away and accept this bad behavior
Yeah.
instead of addressing it head on.
And
So
then they call you, and then
yeah.
they call you.
And then they call me, and then I'm like, oh, well, this is, you got to fire everybody. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, I always say we're flying a plane all the time and we're just fixing the engine while we're flying it. We can't land it because in property management, you can't stop what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
every day is something new and different. And so it's managing what's behind the scenes that just keeps everything going as quickly as we can. And it's hard because if you have to replace people, processes are easy, right? It's like numbers and math and data. It's there, it's stagnant. That's, to me, that's kind of the easy part. I can build a process pretty quickly. It's the human factor that builds into it that it's like that changes everything. And if you've got people who are like won't resist change or resist growth and resist all of the work, yeah, and you allow it, then I can't. It's like I can help you, but I can't help you. So there you go.
Do you find, like, so we take a look at some of the big themes that are people centric in the last couple of years here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll open the first one. So what's your take on so maintenance centralization, like not leasing centralization, maintenance centralization?
Okay.
So where's your take on 1 to 10? What's the kind of rate of success on leasing centralization? What you've seen, your opinion.
When you say,
straight opinion.
I know, but when you say leasing centralization, like, can you give me an example? Like centralizing application processing? Is that what you're talking about? Like the whole leasing process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give you the permission to kind of define what that looks like. Because if you got 360 tours, you've got
Okay.
Bob, and you can walk in and do whatever you want to do, and you've got a show suite and all that, and totally imagine a world where it's totally touchless or offsite, and then
Mm-hmm.
and the world where it's like bespoke, it's the same person, it's working hours, all those things. Like, I mean, I guess I leave it to you. You have more depth and more breadth in this than I might. So how would you define it in terms of, like, maybe to your point, the expectations of the
Right.
and then where we're at, like 1 to 10?
Well, so, okay. Probably a 6. I think leasing is a revenue function, right? It's not administrative. It's, and so when it's treated like clerical support at the property level, then performance can fluctuate based off of workload and urgency and, I don't know, personality, I guess. But I think centralization attempts to solve inconsistent follow-up. So that's always an issue. Poor lead conversion, and I think lack of visibility into marketing performance. And I think I think leads, I hear a lot, leads can go unanswered. There's just, they're coming in all the time. You know how it is. I listed something on Zillow, and then if you do that, and if you're the prospect looking and you put, like, I'm interested in this property on Zillow then recommends, like, I don't know how many others. Oh, you like this one? Go look at these. And they're not with your company. And then what happens when you get that lead and you call that contact back or you respond back? You know what they say? What property is this for again? I mean, how frustrating is that? So it's really difficult to, like, that can lead to low tours, right? Low tour to lease conversion. Property managers are overwhelmed or leasing agents are overwhelmed with the amount of, like, operational issues this actually produces. And then you have high vacancy periods because when you do that every single day and you're just constantly berated with leads are probably not the issue. It's just qualified leads is probably the better way of saying it, right? But it works best when you have automation in place, right? So we can have automation on these leads that come in, but you're still going to get some of that. Which one am I calling about? But CRM workflows can be enforced. I think a follow-up of certain cadences and how you do that when they're monitored, and KPIs come into place, and those are tracked daily. When you have that structure in place, then the centralization works. When you don't, it's a little bit more ad hoc, and then you feel a little bit more scrambled. A lot of people don't measure the really detailed, the key metrics that should be included, like, the application to approval, the days to first response, the average days on market, things like that. Some of them are cookie cutter and we do it, but you really have to be on top of it. So, yeah, I mean, you have to be careful of it's like, I don't want to be over automated and I don't want to be under automated. So
Yeah.
you just have to find, I call it the Goldilocks syndrome. Just try to figure out what's going to work in your market for you, using technology, using the human factor, and how does that play into centralizing anything that we do? And what would that financial impact be?
Right. So then the flip side of that is this maintenance centralization, or, I think we
Right.
probably go as far as call it the resident experience. So what's the temperature of that?
Okay. So are you asking me what I think it is or what I think it should be? Because I think
No,
centralizing maintenance isn't inherently good or bad. I think it's very powerful when that structure exists. That's a 10, but it's also very dangerous when it's reactionary, which I see a lot. And so then it's like, it can't work. That's a 2. Like it's very, very diverse. I think when companies centralize, it will handle so many problems that are going on, right? So inconsistent work order handling, vendors that chaos, poor communication. That's the number one thing I always hear. Just managers, maintenance coordinators, everybody being overwhelmed. That's like the number one word I hear all the time. But I think when you centralize anything, so maintenance especially, you promise control, visibility, and you can scale efficiently with that.
Mm-hmm. Which eliminates some of the problems that you get naturally with people. And it creates a world for technology. Like, I see people that don't have a centralized motion in place, but want to activate AI and agentic and automation. I'm like, well, you're kind of trying to put the cart in front of the horse.
Cart before the horse. Yep, exactly. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
You're not going to get there. You're not going to get there.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and again, I call it Band-Aid fixing. They're just solving a quick symptom that they think they can solve with maybe an AI agentic or some solution like that. And they're plugging something in on top of something else, but they're not thinking through the long-term effects of that. And also in the end, who is going to monitor all this and control it? Because it's not, AI is fine, but you still have to monitor the results. So whose job is that? And is it being effective? So I call it centralizing without authority, right? So if the centralized team can't enforce it, and monitor it, then really who's the authority behind all of it?
Yeah. Well, I think that the scary thing is a lot of this is happening at the divisional or the local level because it's just easy. It's easier than the other stuff I do today. And maybe it's a little bit interesting. The interesting thing about and this kind of all comes back to your conversation around it's a pressure business, it's a people business. People businesses aren't designed to scale unless you go to McDonald's. Is that a people business or is it a product business? It doesn't seem like that's the people can be changed in and out. And so they've got a good system in place. Are we willing to put the discipline together to agree on standard operating procedures? Are we willing to put the discipline together to agree on how we run things? This talk, we had a panel on brand a couple weeks back. Are we willing to kind of define what we're actually serving our customers and what that means? And the absence of all of that, it just creates kind of the way we used to do things all the time, which is just it's a single P&L, single building, and we'll do things our way, plus or minus 25% what we committed to our customers, our clients.
Right. But I also think a high-performing team can normalize that pressure as well. They know that the work isn't easy, but they're building this internal culture. They're working together as a team, which is it's collaborative. And they're building on this, and that expects that complexity and ambiguity. And I can never say that word, but they communicate, and they're always looking for continuous improvement in what they're doing. When I see that collaborative effort between teams, then I know we're on the right path. When I see everybody working in these silos, doesn't matter if it's single family, multifamily, doesn't matter. When you're working in individual silos and there's just no communication, and it's like I'm so stuck in my lane and I can't focus on anything else. That's actually very problematic as well.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the conversation around like standardization, all these functions, like when someone comes to talk to you and you kind of, you've got your background, history, all these things, what's kind of what's the uncomfortable truth that you often have to address?
The problem's you.
Yeah.
I call it user error. No pun on like user user error. That's what I call it. I think that's an old DOS comment saying, right? So that's the uncomfortable truth, is it's you, not me.
Yeah.
Not them, not your team. You're thinking your team's not working, and I'm like, that's you.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the conversation about expectations earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think that not people talking about that right now, because like expectations.
I could go on forever about that.
Yeah, there's an interesting formula. I saw on a slide one time a long time ago, and it was like what people think expectations are. And just for clarity, I mean, it's like what's happy, right? The happy formula. Happy formula is like this is kind of the point of this slide was that happy formula, people think the happy formula is actual delivery less expectations, right? So if you've exceeded expectations, people are happy.
Well, what are those expectations, though?
This is kind of saying that happy is actually expectations divided by what actually was delivered. And the point was that if your actual expectations, it scales out logarithmically. If you are a little bit below what was expected, the impact is much greater than if you are just a little bit above. And that, like, if you miss the mark on what is expected and you've communicated that expectation, then you're going to have someone who's very unhappy. If you just get over what they expect, you're going to have a little bit of happy. And then you multiply that by like loss aversion, where people are like, 5 times more likely to talk about something to move on something that takes away pain. It's like, it really is inefficient to try and make people happy, but it really is painful to miss expectations. And so you're better off the expectations.
I think expectations in property management is that invisible infrastructure, right? It runs on expectations, owner expectations, resident expectations, team expectations, vendor expectations. When they're unclear, I think everything feels reactive. We've all kind of gone through that. It's chaos. But when they're defined and enforced, I think your performance stabilizes, things go smoother. So you have to dissect each one of those and really, and even when I say, when you're bringing on a new owner with properties that you're managing, make sure not only that you understand the owner's expectations, but they understand what yours are of them. Because I think we often don't give owners to say, this is our expectation with you as a client on what we want from you. We're too afraid to say that because we don't want to lose the account. Mm-hmm. So we don't actually say anything. And but owners have high expectations of us for a very low fee. So I mean, that goes back to getting paid for what we actually do. And so if you charge a flat fee or if you charge a percentage, in the grand scheme of everything we do, and I know this is not news to anybody, this is not rocket science, we charge very little, and we get paid very little for what we do every single day. And yet we get the same question every single time. What am I getting for that much? Why are you charging that much? Oh, is that included? And that's expectations. They're not clearly set, and we're not controlling the narrative. We're allowing them to control it for us, and we allow it.
So then, for this to your client who is going to an all-in number, are they saying, "I got you," or are they 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Everything that we take.
You mean the client that I talked about earlier?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, no, we're very, very, very clear on this is what you're getting and this
Yeah.
is what we want from you. No, that's a big deal for me, is to align expectations. If you're going to offer this,
Yeah.
this is all they get. There
Yeah.
is this a la carte cafe of charges. If here's your menu. If you want a couple of additional things, absolutely. The answer is
Yeah.
usually yes, but
Yeah.
for a cost, for a fee. I have another business that it's actually it's a vacant home, like we do home watch for vacant properties. And I have I'm in Arizona. I have a business partner in Utah, and we've had this business for several years. And a lot of our properties are in Park City. We have them all over, but that's a majority of where a lot of our properties are. And I used to joke with him, going, how did I do property management with tenants for so long? And this was sitting like, this is amazing, managing empty homes. And here's what's so ingenious about it. We have a fee, and then we have this menu of charges. Oh, you want us to get your mail? Oh, you want us to pull out your trash cans? Oh, you want us to start your car, water your plants, turn off, winterize, whatever it is. You want us to touch it? We're going to charge you for it. We're going to charge you for it. And you want us to wait while your skis get tuned, so when you come back for your ski vacation, they're all ready for you? Absolutely. We'll wait 3 hours to get your skis tuned, and then, charge the batteries in your home for the blinds to be, all ready for you. Like, we'll do anything. The answer is always yes, and there's a fee. We have no problem. I think it's just the years of doing this for so long has probably given me a sense of boldness and a little bit of maturity to say that is not for free. We will do it for you. 100%. We're happy to do it. It's not unreasonable. If it's something that's out of our scope, like we just can't do it, we'll either find somebody and coordinate it for you for a fee, or we'll just push back and say that's just not something that we can do. We don't watch, for example, do you watch pets? No, we don't. So it's an empty home with nothing, with furniture, but no animals. So there's some limitations, but I think we are just, we don't set clear expectations. And then when the question comes up, we're not prepared to say that's not what we can do. We sometimes say yes, and then we're scrambling. And then, to your point, we may have missed some expectation of the owner that we didn't clearly understand.
Yeah.
There's a misalignment, essentially. And that's the biggest thing, is to have this huge misalignment of what are your turn, because in the owner is thinking, oh, your turn timeline should be like a day, right? 24 hours. You should be able to do it. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The renewal strategy, any maintenance approval thresholds, all of that, response time, commitments that we're promising or not promising them. These are all hidden expectations that we didn't talk through and reinforce.
Okay, so that leads us to the question around things that you've learned over the course of your career. And, what advice would you give yourself 15, 20 years ago?
Why would I do property management? What advice would I do? I think you have to listen to what that language is, right? I always say, I often say, are we speaking the same language? So listen, when a buyer moves from, hey, the market's tough, to our structure is not supporting our growth, like that's the moment when they accept internal responsibility for external results, then we're ready for that. But I mean, I don't know. What advice would I give?
What would you give yourself 30 years ago, 20 years ago?
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's people who can help you do that.
Yeah,
and I think some people know that and some people don't. And yes, it's going to come with a cost. It's not for free. But some advice out there is for free. Be very careful. You can ask a question online. You can get 10 different answers. They're not necessarily wrong at all. Yeah. Are they right for your business and for you and for your team and for the culture and for the market, et cetera, et cetera? Like, make sure that whatever advice you are taking, it's something that you can execute. I remember before all of the forums and everything that was out there, it was kind of a big deal to like get other people's property management contracts. I don't, well, what are they charging? Well, what are they charging? It was like such a secret where I was. It was like, that was so proprietary. Oh, if I tell them that we're charging 10%, then they might charge 10. I really don't know. Or I charge a full month's of, a lease up fee, or I charge this for a renewal fee. Really, if you really think about it, again, there's the secret sauce is, I will tell you, the secret sauce is your vendors more than anything else.
Mhm.
Everybody we charge a management fee, we charge a placement fee, we charge a renewal fee. You either do or you don't. There's just, and what that is, it's probably dollars or percentage difference than maybe your competitors. But if looking at all of these contracts, if we, went out and got 5 different contracts from 5 different competitors, and you're like, oh, I really like this clause, I'm going to take that and put it in mine. Just make sure that you are ready to manage to that expectation of whatever that delivers.
It goes back to expectations, right? I mean, I've heard over and over again, transparency, communicate, transparency, expectations. Be transparent about the expectations, communicate them, right?
And make sure the team's on board, that they know also expectations, not exceptions. So that's another big thing, right? Make sure your expectations are aligned, and that the team is aware, because the minute you start doing exceptions, that becomes the problem.
That's like a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like, that's like, you go back to the standardization of everything. It's because the exceptions that become the rule, not the expectations.
Right. Yeah. And and part of my process when I talk to clients is, I do a deep dive into their company right away. And part of that process is talking to their team. And I hear some very recurring themes: communication, like, do you know the expectations of your boss, your manager, and transparency. Like, just, these are like things that you hear about, and that they're frustrated about. And one thing is when an owner of a company is also bringing in new business, or anybody who's bringing in new business, and they make these exceptions for clients, like that's a problem, because the team has to manage to all of these different exceptions. And I can create notes in my software, and it'll maybe pop up that, hey, this owner wants to be called for every single maintenance work order, and this owner is okay, we have $1,000 threshold. It's just, that's really hard on the team to do. Yeah. So why is that okay? It's hard on you. Why would it be okay for you to throw it onto them?
Yeah, I've heard that called the no pickles rule.
What? The no pickles rule?
No pickles rule. We don't serve burgers. All burgers have pickles.
Oh.
No pickles. And so it's like, you're going to build a system that allows for no pickles. That costs money, right?
It does.
And so,
so if you're going to do, I think what you're saying is, if you're going to do that, then charge for it.
Charge for it. Yep.
Yeah.
No pickles is the key.
Okay.
No pickles.
I like that.
Probably been around and someone says no pickles before, but that's the thing. It's like, if it's no pickles.
Maybe that's a Canadian thing. Just kidding.
Well, I don't know. It was a supply chain guy I was working with at one point in time. He's like, that's no pickles.
No, I'm okay. I like it. I've never heard it, but I'm sure now somebody's going to say, oh, that's like a total old thing. I'm like, okay.
Well, or maybe you go to a restaurant and someone goes, I'll have no pickles. And you're like, then what happens?
But to your point, you're right. Can I get that on the side, or can you take that out? And you're right.
Think about that. And then when the burger is delivered with pickles, what happens?
I'm mad.
Made again.
I get,
No pickles.
That's a good point.
Who should we talk to next? No.
Who should I talk to next? Who should you talk to next?
On this show, yeah.
Talk to leaders who are scaling in like complex industries where like operations and people intersect. I don't know. Talk to, obviously property management, multifamily. What?
Anyone comes to name? And anyone comes to mind?
Who should you talk to next? There's a couple interesting, I think what some people are doing. I know you talked to Dan. I know Dan very well with North Point. So I know you spoke to him. Have you talked to Matthew Evernest? with Evernest, Matthew
No,
Whitaker with Evernest.
I've not checked to Matthew yet.
Matthew would be a good one.
I'd love to chat with him.
Yeah.
I'm on his feed all the time.
Mark Cunningham, who does kind of what I do, is always he's always has a great take on what's going out there, what's going on.
Right.
He's a good person to talk to. As operators, I think there's a couple that are really just Adam Willis is great in Utah. Tiffany Rosenbaum in Arizona is also really good. And there's some really good sized firms in the eastern, side of the country as well.
You've been awesome. One was all I asked, and you've already filled my cup. So thank you very much.
Oh, there you go.
You've been awesome. Well, thank you today. Yeah. I think that I really appreciate you digging in on the people part of the business, and then connecting all the revenue, open up with revenue, talk about the people side, and then ultimately, I think the most interesting that maybe people are not ready for is a conversation around transparency and making it easy to buy. All those fees, all those things are hard to buy, hard to know. And so if we're the expert in terms of managing this asset, we should be recommending and offering, the gas station, there's 3 choices. You go to them, there's 3 choices everywhere. So make it easy to buy and make it simple that we can actually kind of make a choice.
I call it in Staples, they have the easy button. That used to be a thing back in the day, the easy button. That's what I always say. Make it easy. Don't make this hard. And that's why sometimes that menu of services is great to offer, because again, these are some exceptions that we might want to be able to say yes. We want to have answers to, can you do this? Yes, we can for a fee. But you may not have it as part of your main menu because they're outliers. They don't always happen. It's kind of like when you have a lease and somebody wants to break a lease. I don't necessarily put that clause in the lease because I don't want them to know that they can break their lease. But sure, you can break your lease, but here's the policy, the process, the procedure for it. And so it's the same thing when an owner says, well, can you go do this? Most likely it's yes, but let's kind of have a menu of what those choices and services could be.
Awesome. Yes. All that stuff. Helpful. It makes it all very clear and transparent. And again, dialing back to the people, we talked about what expectations have been set and the delivery kind of parameters for the team. Sounds very straightforward. Your point, it's been the same problem for 20 years. Yeah.
And I think it'll be the same problem for the next 20 years. Robots are not going to take over our industry. 100% AI can't take over our industry. We're still humans on the other end of it. Yeah. And so we're humans that own the properties. We're humans that rent the properties. I want to talk to a human that's managing my property.
But you know what you didn't say, which I think is worth observing, is that you didn't say it's the residents' expectations. What you said is that everyone likes to blame resident expectations. But what you said is the expectations we set. I think that's empowering. Because resident expectations feel like an unanswered question, a ceiling with no limit, but the expectations we set, we can manage towards. So resident expectations is a function of variability, up or down.
Right.
The no pickles rule. But then the thing about setting expectations and controlling the conversation, I haven't thought about in just this last second here, is that everyone talks about resident expectations and they blame Amazon and Apple and all these things, but it really isn't resident expectations. It's our inability to set expectations. It's accountability.
Yeah, because all of this is a symptom of unclear expectations set by the company, right? Yes. So residents expect fast response, clear communication, fair enforcement, safe housing, consistent, all of that, right? That they want all of that. So if your policies aren't standardized, again, this kind of goes back to the whole, just breaking lease. But if they're not standardized, they're not trained on enforcement, then really just becomes, it's a personality thing, right? You're saying that because you don't like me or something, or, and that's not it at all. So consistency on how we manage our residents builds trust. Again, I'm going to go back to trust because that's where it comes. That's the universal love language is trust, essentially. We want to have trust. But inconsistency builds online reviews, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
There's a whole separate conversation. Okay, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for going over.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
And thanks for listening today. If you catch us on the podcast, like, favorite, makes it easy to find. If you catch this on live, please, any comments and conversation about the conversation. God, it's been so outstanding. We could have gone for another couple hours. Thanks for listening to everybody today. Matthew, Mark, Adam, and Tiffany, I'll be reaching out. I'm going to text you. Apologies, my voice is running out of gas.
I know. I was like,
the cold has just like caught me. I need another bout of hot water. But thank you so much today for allowing the conversation to go all the different directions it went, because it was super interesting. All right.
Perfect. Thanks.
Everyone.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye. And we're done.